welcome to the Bougie Kitchen. We're switching it up this week and we have a wonderful recipe for you that involves the leek in your bag and a lot of fresh herbs, and we're going to be making a wonderful summer frittata. First, we're going to go over the ingredients that you need to make this frittata. First, we're going to need a lot of fresh herbs, nearly 1.5 cups of parsley, dill, and cilantro. You're going to need 1 medium leek, only the white and light green part. You'll need some olive oil. You'll need 5 large eggs. You'll need some black pepper and some salt, 1 medium onion, some baking powder, turmeric, and there's one more ingredient on the list that we don't have, which is fenugreek, and that's optional. For equipment, you'll need your cutting board and your red chef knife, a wooden spoon and a rubber spatula, a bowl for mixing your eggs in, a oven-safe skillet. That's really important because this is going on the stove and in the oven. So you want to make sure it does not have a plastic handle. You'll also need a lid for the skillet. You'll need a 1 cup measure, a 1/2 cup measure, and a tablespoon, teaspoon, and 1/2 teaspoon measure. A frittata is basically a quiche without a crust. It's an eggy dish that you bake in the oven, and it has lots of good ingredients mixed in with it. So expect a quiche, but without the crust, so it makes it a little bit easier. What you're gonna wanna do is dice up your onion. So this is just a normal dice, fairly small. It's gonna bake down and soften. Remember to remove that first fleshy outer layer. Then we're gonna cut up our leek. And if you remember from a previous video, we're only gonna use the white and the light green part, and we're gonna wash it really well. So we're gonna go ahead and cut off the top and the bottom. And for us, I think it's gonna be best to slice it lengthwise. Then you can run it under running water and get any dirt out. Next, we're gonna make sure our herbs are chopped up and ready to go. These need to be chopped up pretty fine, and we're gonna use 3 different herbs. This one is cilantro, and again, cilantro leaves are great, but a lot of the flavor's in the stem too, so don't be afraid to just chop up the stem with the rest of the leaves. Just make sure they're in really small pieces. So we're gonna try and get about 1.5 cups of these fresh herbs. The first step in cooking this frittata is to saute your leeks and your onion. So you're gonna take 2 tablespoons of olive oil or another vegetable oil of your choice and put them into your oven-safe skillet. Once the oil is shimmering, go ahead and add your leeks and your onions and just stir it a coat. While your onions and leek are cooking, you're gonna wanna start your egg mixture. So you're gonna crack 5 eggs into the bowl and mix in a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of table salt, a teaspoon of black pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. Next, we're gonna add in our black pepper. Black pepper can be spicy, so if you don't want as much heat in the dish, you can do a half teaspoon instead, which is what we're gonna do. Then you want about a teaspoon of salt. This is table salt. If you're using kosher salt, go ahead and put in 1.5 teaspoons. Then you're gonna want a teaspoon of baking powder, which is gonna help your frittata get nice and puffy. And finally, you wanna mix in half a teaspoon of turmeric if you have it. This will add a nice musky flavor and mainly color. Then you just want to combine it with a whisk or a fork will work just fine. So our leeks and our onions are done. You know when they're done when they're going to be quite translucent and soft, but you don't want them to brown quite yet. So we're going to turn the heat off, and we're going to put these back in the bowl and set them aside while we prepare the pan for the next step. The next step is we're going to combine all of our ingredients, the egg mixture, our chopped herbs, and our leeks and onion into one big bowl. And it's going to look quite green and be pretty runny. So we're just going to put all of these in there. And all of our egg mixture. So our herb and egg mixture is going to go back into the skillet, but first we need to take out any residue of the leeks and the onions. So we're just going to go ahead and take a paper towel and wipe out the skillet. In fact, if you wanted to, you could even go ahead and wash the skillet and then put it back on the heat. With our skillet clean, we're ready to start cooking. So we're going to put 3 more tablespoons of olive oil or vegetable oil of your choice into the skillet and heat it over medium heat, just like the first time. To cook this frittata, we're going to use 2 different ways to do that. We're going to cook the bottom of the frittata on the stove where the heat is coming from underneath. Then we're going to take the whole skillet and pop it under the broiler in the oven and cook the top of the frittata. We'll do low. Okay, so we're ready to put in our frittata to our hot pan. Just want to make sure all of that gets out of the bowl into the pan. And just flatten it out with your spatula so it's nice and even. And we're going to put the lid of the skillet onto this and cook it for about 8 to 10 minutes or until the bottom is set. So for us, it's been about 8 minutes and it's beginning to smell really great. So we want to check to make sure the bottom is done. So you can just take your spatula and run it around the sides, and if it's holding together pretty well, you can go ahead and pop it into the broiler. Ours is looking just a little bit soft on this side, so we might let it go another minute or 2. So when you're ready to put your frittata into the oven, go ahead and take off that lid, and we're gonna pop this in to our oven with the broiler on low. So the broiler is just the top element. So the heat is gonna be coming from the top. We're gonna put that in, and we're gonna bake that for another few minutes. So our frittata has cooked under a high broil for about 2 minutes. And when you're ready to take it out, remember to grab an oven mitt because it's gonna be really, really hot. So go ahead and pull it out and put it back onto the oven. And we're gonna let that set for another minute or 2. Wonderful.